Hello everyone. Let's look at Rust protocol engineer jobs. We'll start off looking at this and then I'll get back to some stuff in Rust itself. We're looking at a job here which is advertised in Switzerland 22 days ago. Salary $150,000 to $200,000. And it's a Rust protocol engineer to develop and maintain core components of a permissionless decentralized system. I've got my own thoughts on crypto, Bitcoin, altcoins, etc., which you know some of my older videos you may have guessed, but I'll keep those thoughts to myself. Um, if you want to learn more things about Rust, then to be honest, anything is a bonus. So anything and everything. So this job is obviously out of reach for a lot of us, but it's just interesting to look at kind of the domain expertise required for some Rust jobs. This one wants familiarity with core blockchain infrastructure, including consensus algorithms and protocol engineering. And this needs zero knowledge proofs ZKP. So I would expect, unless you've got a master's degree in computer science, this might be quite challenging or out of reach. But yeah, this is the interview process. Like meeting, initial discussion with the CEO or CTO. Guided Rust exercise, screen sharing involving a Rust programming task. A 1 to 2 day coding task focused on code quality and technical decision making. So this is the thing going forward. It's not purely just going to be about the ability, or it never has been about just the ability to write code. It's obviously the decisions you make and the design and the architecture and everything. So review of homework assignment followed by a technical discussion. I guess if you made some mistakes, but then you talk about how you could have done something differently, that's fine, isn't it? Final interview if necessary. So really, this is the important bit. But yeah, that's kind of the big wide world of high quality, low level software for decentralized systems. Rust jobs. I don't know how many jobs are on here. I've only just looked on this now. So America, Japan, senior software, senior. Most of the Rust jobs do tend to be senior because obviously the stuff that's being converted to Rust is pretty much core, core parts of most enterprise software. So, or hopefully that's the expectation. Trading systems in the UK. I live in the UK, so I'm just going to quickly look at this before we move on. VC funded. The only thing with VC funded is it may or may not become the next Microsoft, Apple, or it might just disappear, get taken over, go to zero. But then again, obviously, if as long as you get a salary and it's not just purely based on some shares in a company, you'll be fine. Deep technical domain expertise with low-level distributed systems, low latency programming. And obviously that's where Rust excels. They want you to have worked at one of the finance places. So you can see all the mainstream big, I won't use the word, but the big banks are obviously jumping on the DeFi, centralized finance bandwagon. And there we go. So experience working in, whether professionally or as a side project, and having a passion for crypto, blockchain, MEV. There we go. So Rust jobs. I just thought that was an interesting thing to talk about because a lot of my videos are just short and to the point and just showing some bits of code, which is the whole point of the channel, learning Rust. But sometimes it's just good to take a step back and just see consider the bigger picture. Rust developer, renewable energy startup. Web3 backend engineer, Portugal. Portugal's got some quite favourable tax and visa and entry and citizenship sort of regulations. So Solidity, Rust, smart contracts, blah, blah, blah. Tokyo, Cargo, Git, Pulumi, AWS, Docker, Grafana, Python, Solidity, TypeScript, C++, great bonus, DeFi, theory, I don't even, yeah. Moving swiftly on, team player, senior, mentor, refactor. There we go, quite a lot of the usual things. Salary, earn 6,000 with a, oh, you get a referral. There's the salary, so that's dollars again, US dollars presumably, not Canadian or Australian. Okay, let's look at some stuff. So um, I'll show you what I've just done, and then you can take a look at it. But it's I'm just starting to look at the future. I know you should have done it already, but here we go. So I'm kind of trying to learn more about the back end of a lot of blockchain type stuff with an emphasis on cryptography, because any form of altcoin or whatever will or may not succeed, but obviously cryptography is never going to go away. So the emphasis is mainly on cryptography, Merkle tree in Python, Merkle tree in Rust. If you don't know what a Merkle tree is, it's basically a tree structure of hashes, and each time you put two hashes together, you hash those two, and then that moves. It's like the upside down tree, just like most trees. So I have been looking at Soroban, and the reason why is because it is a blockchain. It's a foundation, so it's not quite so. I'm not sure whether it's a class of going to be categorized as a security in the US or an unregulated security or whatever. But yeah, so I've just been looking at how it works. You've got strokes, impulse, all the usual. Um, there is some obviously bespoke stuff, and they've stripped out the standard library. And I just wanted to show you while I'm talking about it. So on my website, redandgreen.co.uk, here I've just got Webdock, because they've been kind enough to give me some free server space. And yeah, if you click this link, it'll take you to Webdock and you have a look. The no nonsense cloud, simple, scalable, secure. It's got a beautiful control panel. The Webdock is 100% bootstrap Danish EU-based company, and we're not piggybacking off somebody else's cloud. You can get servers, either VPS servers running Ubuntu, Nginx, Apache, Python 3.12 or 13, I can't remember. And yeah, it's a good price. You get a static IP, and anyway, I'll let you look at that, because I don't want this to turn into a shameless ad. Because the more I plug it, the more resistance I'll probably encounter. So let's actually look at something I've been doing, which is try and I've got my recording software running, and it's causing me to get in a muddle. Okay, so let me just make that bigger. I'll just explain what I'm going to show here. So when I compile um, the Soroban example, so Soroban is basically the SDK, and it's the smart contract side of things for Stellar, which is a altcoin, but you may or may not like that idea. That's beside the point, really. So what I've done is I've done a alias here, which takes me to, I just type dev, and that actually does SSH into my Webdock server. Right. So now let me explain. That what behind the scenes, what that did was it ran an alias that I added to my .zshrc file. Okay, so I'm logged in, and you can hack this if you want. If you want that IP and you want to try and log in and delete all my files, you're welcome to. This is a development server. You can do what you want. If you can guess my SSH password and credentials, which hopefully you can anyway. I know everybody's talking about. So everybody's talking about quantum computing and saying it's going to break Bitcoin and everything. Well, actually, if it breaks Bitcoin, I think it's probably already launched. It will have already hacked the Pentagon and launched and started World War III. So, yeah, I think whether it's so I've done RS, which is my usual shortcut to my Rust directory, and in here I've got some projects which I've already created based on the Soroban examples. So if I go back in my history, it's only storing my recent history of this session. Okay, so if I go to increment, which is the second Soroban example, and inside here, so this is actually it's basically a Rust project with some extra bits added on. You start off with a workspace. So if we go to the cargo.toml, and again, whenever you look at stuff, even if you don't like crypto or whatever, there's always stuff you can learn, and quite often there's a lot of really good training material. So yeah, even if it's not your favorite cup of tea or the crypto stuff, there's just so much you can learn from it. And a lot of the material's free, so what's not to like? So this is using workspaces. Haven't gone to workspaces yet. It's basically a top level cargo file, which then you have projects. So contracts is basically where you different bin different binaries would be really, and then you just have. So this is all fairly bespoke, really, because it's all created when I did. What did I do? Let me get back up. I think I did Stellar. So Stellar is basically the name of the altcoin and the contract build foo. Uh, oh no, I need to do Stellar bits. Stellar init foo. Do foo x just in case I've already done foo. Stellar foo x in it if I can type in it properly. Let's just do Stellar list them. Stellar dash dash list. My typing is shocking. I apologize. Right, so Stellar list. No plugins installed. EG Soroban. Hello. So this is one that I made earlier. Let me just go up to the docs. You need to go to so Stellar. Then you go to right smart. So it's smart contracts we're looking at, and then hello world. Stellar contract init. Then the name of the project you want to create. So let's just go back here. I just need to go back up. This is just a directory that I've got, which is just I've called Rust. So instead of calling it Soroban Hello World, which you've already got, I'll just call it YT YouTube demo Soroban. Now you can see, so that's what it's actually generated. And you can see it's got the cargo there, which is basically controlling the workspace. And you've got the cargo.toml there, which is particular to a contract. So you can have multiple contracts within kind of the outer project. But I'm not just kind of just here to just teach you to suck eggs, really. What I was looking at was, and this is also what I've put in my article, and I was getting ChatGPT to help me as well. I was just looking at various things of us. I was quizzing it about associated functions, which hopefully you've come across. Associated functions are basically where they're like uh, class methods in Python, for instance. So it's where you're not running on an instance, but you're actually just using the actual methods of the class itself. The increment function is an associated function because it does not take self. Its behavior depends on the type's design. In many cases, you'd expect the function like increment to be instance methods, blah, blah, blah. So um, associated functions often serve as helpers or constructors for operations related to the type. So how they and also here the associated function is basically allowing you to do new. So it's like a bit like a yeah, like a constructor really. So there's no self parameter. That's the difference. Hopefully you already knew that. The Rust docs covers all that, so I'm not going to I'm not going to go over what the Rust docs covers. Here, it talks. I was quizzing it about using references with numbers because obviously numbers are in like an i32. They implement copy, so typically you would pass them by value. But there will be times when you don't want to because you want to actually modify the same value. Using references. What else was I looking up? Yeah, just I think with Rust, you just have to really every day or every week you need to just keep going back over references and lifetimes because it's you just need to. I think eventually it just becomes intuitive and I understand it and I know when to make something mutable and when to use the reference. But if I was asked to stand in front of people and explain it, I'd probably fall to pieces. So it's like doing up your shoelaces. You can do it, but if you're trying to explain it to somebody, it's harder, isn't it? So this is where I was getting the stuff for my article on red and green that I showed you. So what I was actually trying to quiz it about was why or how a new type's generated. In the macro generates them. So again, macros, even though we're talking about a altcoin that uses Rust, we're still learning stuff because we're learning about macros, we're learning about references to integers, and yeah, and then I was asking it why am I only really seeing the use of new with the test files? Oh yeah, so that's a good thing to talk about. So if we come in here and I show you YT Soroban, and then I'll go into contracts, which is, and then I've got my hello world, which again, just like how Rust builds you a hello world. The world, and then if we go to source, right, so then we've got lib.rs. So this is what it makes for you by default. So it does those imports. Those imports are obviously bespoke. They're specific to Soroban, which is specific to Stellar, which is a altcoin. So then you create a struct, and then you create an import. Then you use env, which is basically it's a bit like running in how JavaScript runs in its own environment. It's just self-contained when you run it. So I wanted to talk about tests here. So that's the lib.rs which gets generated. And let me just show you the test.rs, which is here. And this is just if you're not if you're still learning Rust and you're not really using tests all the time, this is just a bit more good practice really. And this is where the client gets used. So just a minute or so ago I was talking about the client. So this is contract client. That contract client is made by the macro, where contract is the name of the struct. So then the macro makes a function, which is basically the associated function, which then creates you contract client view. So if your struct was called mofo and your import was called mofo, obviously which matches your struct, the macro which is above import will create you this. So it'd be called mofo client new. And then you use that client with your tests. Oh, that's clear. Let me run that over that again. So go back into lib. We've got a struct called contract, which is of type which is the. Let me change this. So if this was called mofo, then that would also be called mofo, and then function could still be called hello. And then with the test, which let me get the test there. Then instead of contract client, that would be called OFO client. You see how it's offering it there? Don't know what that error is there, but this is just for demo purposes. So all I was trying to do was really just use ChatGPT to to answer me just some of the basic questions really. I mean, all documentation does run on a few assumptions. And if you've come from another if you've got domain expertise elsewhere, and this is you come into this out of the out of the dark. There you see, so I did Mofo. The import was called Mofo, and then let me just zoom in on that. The contract import macro automatically generates a client type for the contract. So this is all to do with smart contracts, which run on Soroban, which is the SDK or the smart contracts which run on the Stellar blockchain, which has brought us full circle back to what we were looking at the start here. Rapidly evolving blockchain. The final thing I was just going to say was I'm running this on Webdock. And what I did was basically I copied. So this is running on the actual Webdock server with very minimum. So if I go home, just home/dev, what is it? Name -a. It's just a Ubuntu machine, but it's a higher spec than my laptop. Why is that important? Well, if I go back to my Rust directory, and then if we go to, I'll go to the Hello World because I know that I've not broken that one. And then if I want to do, if I actually want to build it, I think it's still contract build. It's already built it, but so the first time I build it, it does take about a minute. On my laptop, the fan kicks in, and then it just makes my laptop hot, and it drains the battery, and so on. So, yeah, why not? If you've got access to a Linux server, you can just run Rust on that. Then if I exit, I'm back on my own laptop, so to speak. I've just done like that shortcut, which I've already set up my SSH and everything. So you'll need to do that. You need to export your .pub file, which will be in CDSA in your .ssh. It's yeah, that's another story. But I just wanted to show you that uh, my latest sort of excitement in life is actually running smart contracts and compiling them on a remote server. And obviously, come from a enterprise background, you're probably very used to doing this sort of thing. But as a kind of a solo programmer, you might want to consider doing this rather than buying a new laptop. Obviously, there's trade-off. But if you think you might pay, I don't know, say £1,000 for a new laptop, whereas you could just get hosting for £20 a month, $20 a month, then that would be so either every 4 years you get a high-spec laptop, or just every 4 years you pay for hosting. Obviously, there's pros and cons with that. But the beauty of this is if my laptop dies, I get my other old laptop and log in, and I've got all this stuff here. So it's almost like, and this is on Webdock server. So I would say Webdock's service is less likely to go wrong than my old laptop. So there you go. There's sort of pricing. It starts from $1 a month. That's amazing. Yeah, you'd probably want to upgrade a bit. And Xeon VPS, There we go. There's pricing. So €2, €16. You got the full spectrum there. So you can create custom profiles as well. And depending on what you want to do, I mean, if you were just thinking of using it for compiling, you're probably not going to need lots of storage. So you could create a custom profile with not very much storage. Probably, I'm guessing, probably quite a few threads, maybe 10 threads. And yeah, just go for the faster CPU and go for less storage and do your compiling on that. And if you want to do other stuff like AI stuff, then again, it's probably going to be better to do it on here rather than try and install PyTorch or TensorFlow or Keras or whatever on your laptop and fun kicks in. Um, so it's Ubuntu, LAMP or LAMP. I don't I don't know how compliant this is. I guess if you're running in like a Linux SE environment and you want to set up Red Hat, then you so they got Alma Linux CentOS as well. So if you did want Linux SE or whatever, they also don't really recommend doing email. So really, this is perfect for what I do and probably with many of my viewers to this channel wanted to be doing, which is just have a really fast, high spec server that you can write and compile code on. And you can host obviously it's a web server, it's running Apache and Nginx, so you've got caching management, you can install WordPress, I mean SSH, PHP, blah blah blah. So but again, this is not an advert. It might seem like it, but yeah, so I was trying to just cover off a question that I had in a recent video, which was asking about protocol engineer. So obviously, yeah, I think so. There's various words to kind of look at, which is smart contracts, which I've been talking about with Soroban, and we just looked at the hello world. Then you deploy to testnet. Testnet is basically a test blockchain that you don't need to actually put real money or buy tokens using real money. So this is for developers really. Um, yeah, and then obviously there's more advanced stuff like there's ZK, the zero knowledge proofs, C++, and so on. But if you just want to, if you think, well, I'm never going to be I'm never going to be able to do zero knowledge proofs and all that, but you can by all means you could pick up the Soroban side of things and start writing smart contracts. And obviously this doesn't just tie you to Stellar the network, and if you want to look at the others, then they all work along similar lines because they're all blockchains. They don't all use Rust. I mean, there's another one beginning with E, which mainly uses Solidity and JavaScript. But I think Rust is gradually making quite a big dent into the blockchain world. And also with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is using, and you've seen my other recent videos with Lucas Hoster book, Rust for Bitcoin. There's just, I know academics will say Rust is not good for linked lists and so on. And I've done a video where I did basically linked list, and obviously that you have to start using boxes and options. And I don't really think that the Bitcoin's going to get rewritten in Rust, or Bitcoin Core is not going to get rewritten in Rust anytime soon. But I mean, there's more to Bitcoin just than Bitcoin Core. You've got layer 2, you've got the wallets, all sorts of all sorts of things which go on top of the Bitcoin Core. Bitcoin mining, Brains, I believe Brains are writing software for Bitcoin mining, and they're doing that in Rust. So there's way more to Bitcoin. You don't just think, oh, well, Bitcoin's not Web3, so it's rubbish. Um, but yeah, hopefully this has just piqued your interest, shown you just a little glimpse of. So Stellar has got its own CLI, so you write your code, or you can do the hello world thing. So Stellar is basically the CLI, which generates your your Rust boilerplate, your Rust workspace project, cargo toml. Then you actually go in and do your code. They've got some examples down here: example contracts, events, custom types, errors, login, auth, cross contract calls, deployer, atomic swap, blah blah. Um, so this is also really really good for kind of getting you into good habits with testing and writing tests as well, if you don't already do that. The only kind of drawback I would say is if for having like a fully fledged Rust programming career is it uses no standard. So it uses basically a subset of Rust. So if you want to be using Rust with, you want to go into into a career of writing Rust libraries and so on, then using you know, dynamic dispatch and box and static dispatch in order or different behavior like state pattern and doing all the sort of stuff that you would learn on a Rust, maybe not even a Rust crash course, but like in Rust in the month of lunches, so much good stuff in there that you probably wouldn't ever need here because I say this is like a subset of Rust. To me, that's the downside. But on the other hand, you're learning about contracts, smart contracts, and DeFi. So as I see it, there's really only two things left that you can do if you want to be a programmer and within 5 years' time, still in 5 years. So either jump on the AI bandwagon or jump on the blockchain crypto bandwagon. I mean, there's all data science and everything, but if that's pretty much asking for master's degree and so on and so on. So um, if you've got the enthusiasm and the passion to do something with AI, then that's good. And also, if you want a side hustle or if you want to just do this, the great thing about this is you've got the test net and you've got the code available, you've got the ability to write the um, smart contracts and the tests. So pretty much you can do everything that you would need to just with a laptop, and you're not going to need um, access to lots of highly expensive CUDA processors and so on and so on. As I showed you, this can run on my. It takes a minute or so to compile, which is not ideal. But if you just run it on a web server such as Webdock, then it's not going to make your computer hot. You can just leave it. You can do that in the background, and while that's compiling, you can do whatever you need to do. But yeah, I'd really recommend just getting a VPS running Linux and installing Rust on it and do compiling on that, and then just SSH onto it. If you're using Z or something or VS Code again, I think I'm not sure if on this machine or if it's on my other machine, but I have set up Visual Studio Code to access it. And there we go. And then you just do the little thing in the bottom left. So thanks for watching. A little bit of a kind of look at altcoins Stellar, which uses the Soroban SDK. We've talked about Rust protocol engineers, which if you've got the skills to do that, then well done to you, because it's quite I would imagine it's pretty difficult. It's beyond what my brain is capable of at the moment. So yeah, there we go. It's good salaries and so on. We've talked about compiling on Linux VPS. Talked about my website, which I've just put together with basically what I do is I go onto ChatGPT, I ask it questions that I don't know about, and then I collate a lot of those questions and just try and link them all together with a bit of a narrative, and then I post them on my website, which is red and green under Rust programming, understand Soroban smart contract naming conventions, and that's where I was kind of quizzing it on how it actually generates the client, which is used for writing tests. And yeah, if you want to really do tests properly, then you can do a lot worse than learning about smart contracts, because obviously they do need testing, because real money is at stake when these get deployed. So what you do is you build these, deploy them, then you invoke them. So I'm not going to cover that here, but just yeah, do the tutorial on here. And there's other alternative blockchains, but I think Stellar is quite a good one. And there's also a foundation, I believe. So it's not too overpowered by venture capital and so on, so on. So I'm not going to start dissing venture capital, but you get the idea. So thanks for watching, and yeah, if you like this type of video, let me know. Otherwise, I'll probably be back soon with yeah, something a bit more didactic and shorter, and probably a 5-minute video on who knows. I was looking at matches the other day, matches.count. So if you want to find a string, a substring inside a big string, if you did Event of Code Day 4, you know what I'm on about. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, thumbs up, help the channel and all that, because I'm not making any money out of this. Thanks for watching. Cheers.